Oops. Yeah.
Listen to my muscle memory. 46 and 2 ahead of me. My shadow. Going back a couple years, we're here with Lateralus, which is really their kind of magnum opus. Of course, you have aenima or aenima, I don't know, fuck you. But this album is probably their proggiest.
Driving around, I see like 40-year-old dads with Tool stickers on their cars. So I never really knew they were a prog band until I really listened to more of their stuff. The first thing I heard, of course, was Schism. They have an excellent lineup, and the bass player, Justin, in order to stand out, you have to do different things. He has 13 effects pedals when they play live. I mean, he knows how to make his sound stand out.
This was influential in really the 2000s rock, too. Bands like Linkin Park and their contemporaries, I think, took a lot of inspiration, not just from Tool, but this album specifically.
The cover's interesting as you take the cover apart.
It peels back the different layers of the human body. Without further bullshit, the Grudge. This is a banger of an opening track. The tribal feel with the drums pounding with the guitar riffs and the bass. What's most impressive about Maynard James Keenan is his versatility. On this track, at certain points, he sounds a lot like James Hetfield from Metallica. The changes of pace were also awesome, too. I think my favorite section of the entire song, and drummer Danny Kerrey with the double bass, that section where he went from the whole notes to the quarter notes and then the 32nd and so on.
The unique bass tone that Justin always brings, and the guitar and drums kind of keep a steady, heavy feel to it. Maynard kept your attention leading into the song. Definitely a welcomed, heavy prog intro.
I hate screaming metal, but it was impressive with Maynard showing off his range, how he can go from the softer singing to the James Hetfield style singing to the Kurt Cobain style yelling on top of the screaming, all together just this one track. And the way Danny Carey beats the shit out of the toms the entire song.
This song is about maturity and development, and they used Saturn's orbital period of 29.5 years. They took a bunch of astrology and put their own beliefs into the song for it, which I think is important instead of just, horseshit.
Phenomenal opening track, so I give this one an 8.
An 8.5.
The haunting guitar on Eon Blue Apocalypse kind of sounds like something out of a Nolan movie. Patient. The quiet plucks on the bass that continue the same mysterious suspension feel from the transition.
Eon Blue Apocalypse was named after the guitar player. His dog, yeah. It was somewhat of I would say maybe a little slower piece. Still very heavy on the musicianship. And the second half of the song brings back the heavy tone. Kind of a sad song when you think about the meaning behind it, and they kind of question what God's plan is.
Not only were they able to keep the album's concept of the human body and science, but they were also able to relate it to personal matters, this one being about Maynard James Keenan's mother and her paralysis that she's had. That combined with the instrumental loaded with odd time signatures like 11/8, 5/4, nicely carry over the energy and the same feel from the beginning. So I give this one a 7.5.
So I give this one a 7.
I listened to Mantra going for a walk in my neighborhood at night. First, I was like, creep the fuck out. And then I went and did some research and found out how he made that noise. And then I proceeded to hysterically start laughing in front of a random guy's house.
They have good ingenuity in their sound production. I'll give them that much.
For our next cover, what I was going to do is I was going to go out on the street and kick some random stranger in the shin and then speed up the audio and see if I get like a cool effect. So you can't go into the song without talking about the triplet notes at the beginning right after the original intro.
One of the greatest bass intros and riffs of all time. I think the pitch and quality of the riff really draws any listener towards it, especially if you don't even know if it's a bass. I like how the guitar copies the bass riff at certain parts. It doubles the quality.
The guitar also, the roaring riffs that kind of follow that triplet note style that the bass does, the drums pounding in the background. Chancellor's use of different effects. He uses the wah pedal on this one. That's a really cool effect that he adds in there. Somehow even outshine the guitar. As essential as you're going to get in the Tool discography. So I give this one a 9.
I give this one a 9 as well.
Interesting, we've seen a lot of prog bands do the 2-part songs, but what's cool here is that Tool likes to blend different sounds, so they go with a softer feel for all of Parabol, and they immediately explode into Parabola. The Bonham style drum beat immediately caught my attention and is paired nicely with the fuzzy guitar. MJK again flexes his vocal ability, specifically the way he goes right from the softer tone to the Cobain style yelling.
The opening riff for Parabola is, I think, it's probably one of the legendary ones for this album. I think it stands out. The guitar screeches with the drums and bass following close by. It ends with a distortion explosion, if I could say the least.
Even if it's more of a simple metal song than some of their other technical and proggy stuff that we saw earlier in the album, it's still a strong track, so I give it a 7.
I give this one an 8.5.
Holy shit. Danny Carey going apeshit on the drums and flexing his stamina, providing a nice layer for the transition as joined by the rest of the band. I cannot fucking stand Screamo. And you can come after me in the comments all you want. I can go on a tirade. I still appreciate the talent and the ability to do it without just like destroying your voice and never being able to talk again.
Starts off very strong. I really like Danny's drum fill and the intro, and then followed by Justin on the bass. I have some friends that really love the Screamo, screaming till you blow your eardrums out. For no disrespect, it does take a certain amount of skill, but just for me personally, I don't think it belongs. But I will say I really do enjoy the meaning of the song. You know, the record company and how they just suck you dry and then give you nothing in return.
I'll go a little bit into it here, right? So vocals, singing, they add a nice melody to the song. It's like an extra instrument, right? Then you could say that, oh, but Darius, you like rap, you like the hippity hop stuff, right? Rap provides rhythm. Instead of the voice providing melody like usual, it provides a little bit of a rhythm, like another drum section or something like that. Screaming offers absolutely none of that. Sure, it might add a little bit of energy, right? It's like aggressive, like, yeah, I'm under the bench, I'm doing like 480, which is definitely my max bench. All the other times that you're not benching 480, it's useless. Musically, the speed and technicality is impressive, but the vocals, a massive distraction from the rest of it. So I give it a 6.
6.5. When the mob comes, I'll be like, well, I was 0.5 higher. And they'll be like, all right, we'll kill you after.
They master the build-up with a clean guitar riff and the accompaniment by the marching bass that gradually turns up on Lateralus. Consistently, Danny Carey's been showing out this whole album.
It's one of Tool's most complex and intricate songs, and it has many different meanings in it. The main purpose behind the song, be random, don't have a structure, but then at the same time, they structured the song in a certain way so that way it would have a structure. The simple but elegant guitar solo, led by the heavy drums, definitely leads the way for the whole 9-minute piece.
MJK, again, shows his versatility going on a more melodic flow. The ending with a hard, gritty guitar riff paired with a sick drum beat and a crazy bass effect was insane and a fantastic representation of what the album is. Perfectly fitting for a title track, so I give it an 8.
Definitely perfect title track song. I give it an 8 as well.
The bongos, harmonics, and guitar effects all work together to create a really interesting and mysterious kind of vibe on Reflection and Disposition. Quite a lengthy transitional track. For over 4 minutes, we have MJK repeating the same 2 sentences over and over again.
Starting with Disposition, another great bass intro, of course, by Justin. I wouldn't expect less. Reflection, another welcome drum intro by Danny.
It's cool how some of the jungle style of percussion carries over into Reflection. The first time we hear prominent synths on the record as well. One of those old school Oberheims or something like that, which give a nice extra bass layer.
Do you feel like Reflection was just a little too long?
In other words, Metalhead thinks that Reflection was too long, but go ahead, explain why.
At the end, it was kind of like with Ticks and Leeches, where they could have ended it a little sooner, but they wanted to extend the duration of the song to really get the emphasis on what they were going for.
They introduce a couple new instruments, as we also get the string instrument in the beginning, which there's lots of debate online whether this is like one of those Middle Eastern string style instruments or if Maynard James Keenan just grabbed another cat.
Watch your cat.
It does take a while to build up, but when we finally get there, we're greeted by a rare guitar solo, which increasingly almost mimics with the tone the string instrument in the beginning. There's not a lot that Tool does differently on this one. Still a structurally solid piece, so I give it a 6.5.
A 7.
I don't know what you thought about Triad, but I instantly thought of the Shattered Fortress. Freedom! Kiss your grandmother!
Justice! Compassion!
Balance sheet!
Cash flow statement.
Triad had a really cool riff, which they repeat the whole fucking song. Faaip. Oiad. Faaip.
It means voice of God.
Oiad.
There was some talk show where somebody called and said that they used to work at Area 51 and that the military was out to get him. Seconds and minutes later after he said that, the satellite which carried the show died and stopped sending the signal, and everyone was like, oh my god. The caller called back later when the satellites came back up, and he was like, "Oh no, I was just joking."
It's never been explained, though, why the station cut out. You got to pull up with the Tumblr to Area 51. Overall, it's easy to see why this record is among the top of Tool's discography. I've only ever listened to this one, and I heard a couple from aenima. I don't know, fuck you. Certainly, it's highs and lows, but I think the highs are significantly more than the lows, so I give this one a 7.5.
As an overall piece, especially for this album, it was tough because they were coming off of issues with their record company. They definitely brought everything they had to the table and more. And yes, I do agree they did have their fair shares of low points, but definitely more often high points. Maybe we'll do more in the future unless we both die from the comments. Who knows? And I would have to give it a 7.
Nice.